the crowded, grey streets of St. Petersburg, a young man walks alone with a dangerous idea growing inside his mind. He is poor, he is proud, he is intelligent, and he has begun to believe that some people have the right to step over moral law. His name is Rodion Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov lives in extreme poverty. His room is so small it feels more like a coffin than a home. He has stopped attending university because he cannot afford it. He avoids people. He avoids landlords. He even avoids his own humanity. But poverty alone is not what destroys him. What truly poisons him is his pride. Raskolnikov begins to divide humanity into two kinds of people, the ordinary and the extraordinary. Ordinary people, he thinks, must obey the law, but extraordinary people, men like Napoleon, may break moral rules if their actions serve a higher purpose. And once this idea enters his mind, it does not remain philosophical for long. He starts thinking of Alyona Ivanovna, an old pawnbroker. She is greedy, harsh, and miserable. She profits from the desperation of the poor. In Raskolnikov's mind, she becomes more than a person. She becomes a symbol, a test, a target. He tells himself that killing her would not really be evil. In fact, it might even be justice. With her money, he imagines he could continue his education, support his mother and sister, and begin a better life. One death, he thinks, could free many lives. But beneath all this reasoning lies something darker. He does not only want to change his life, he wants to prove something to himself. He wants to know whether he is one of the extraordinary. Then a letter arrives from his mother. It should have brought comfort. Instead, it deepens his despair. In the letter, he learns that his beloved sister, Dunya, is preparing to marry a wealthy man named Luzhin. The marriage is not for love. It is a sacrifice. Luzhin is vain, cold, and controlling, but he offers security. Dunya is willing to endure him for the sake of her family, and especially for Raskolnikov. This humiliates him. His mother and sister are suffering for him, selling their dignity, their comfort, even their future. And he, trapped in his room and trapped in his thoughts, cannot bear it. Now the murder begins to appear not only possible, but necessary. His theory, his poverty, and his family's suffering all begin to press together into one fatal decision. One evening, wandering through the city, Raskolnikov meets a drunken government clerk named Marmeladov. Marmeladov speaks with the wild honesty of a broken man. He tells Raskolnikov about his ruined life, his suffering wife Katerina, and his daughter Sonya. Sonya has been forced into prostitution to feed her family. She has sacrificed herself so others may live. This encounter is deeply important because from this point on, the novel places two forms of suffering side by side. Raskolnikov suffers because of his pride, his isolation, and his rebellion against morality. Sonya suffers because of love, sacrifice, and compassion. They are both trapped in pain, but they will respond to pain in completely different ways. At the time, Raskolnikov does not yet understand how important Sonya will become. But the moral center of the story has already entered his life. At last, the idea becomes action. Raskolnikov carefully plans the crime. He chooses a time when the old pawnbroker will be alone. He hides an axe under his coat. He walks to her apartment in a feverish state, as if pulled forward by a force stronger than reason. When the moment comes, there is no triumph, only panic, only horror. He kills Alyona Ivanovna with the axe. It is brutal, clumsy, and terrifying. But then something goes wrong. Her innocent half-sister, Lizaveta, unexpectedly enters the apartment. Lizaveta is gentle, vulnerable, harmless, and Raskolnikov kills her too. This second murder destroys all his justifications. Alyona, he had convinced himself, was a parasite, a cruel and useless old woman. But Lizaveta was not part of the theory. She was not part of the plan. With her death, the crime is revealed for what it truly is. Not a noble experiment, not a philosophical act, but bloodshed. Chaotic, ugly, irreversible bloodshed. Raskolnikov barely escapes. He steals almost nothing of value. He leaves in terror, shaken to his core. And from that moment on, the punishment begins. Not in a courtroom, not in a prison, but inside his own mind. After the murder, Raskolnikov does not become stronger. He collapses. He falls into fever, confusion, and terror. He hides the stolen items without even using them. He cannot think clearly. He cannot eat normally. He cannot rest. Every sound feels threatening. Every conversation feels dangerous. The crime does not elevate him above ordinary humanity. It traps him inside it. Even when no one accuses him, he feels surrounded by accusation. Even when no one knows, he feels exposed. He tries to act normal, but his behavior becomes stranger and stranger. What Dostoevsky shows here is devastating. Raskolnikov thought guilt was a social invention. He thought morality was a rule imposed from outside. But now he discovers that punishment can grow naturally from within. The conscience he tried to overpower has not died. It has awakened. During this period, one of the few bright figures in the novel steps forward. Razumikin, Raskolnikov's loyal and energetic friend. Razumikin is kind, practical, and sincere. Everything Raskolnikov is struggling not to be. He helps care for him during his illness and becomes close to Raskolnikov's mother and sister. When Dunya arrives in the city with her mother, the tension around her engagement to Luzhin grows. Luzhin reveals himself as petty, selfish, and eager to control Dunya by making her feel dependent on him. Raskolnikov despises him immediately. For all his own moral corruption, he can still clearly recognize the ugliness in others. Eventually, Dunya rejects Luzhin, refusing to sell her soul for security. In a story full of humiliation and weakness, this becomes a rare moment of dignity. Now the story shifts into a new kind of battle. Not physical, but psychological. Porfiry Petrovich, the investigating magistrate, begins to take interest in Raskolnikov. Porfiry is not a dramatic detective in the usual sense. He does not rely on force. He does not rush to arrest. Instead, he studies people. He waits. He listens. He lets the guilty mind expose itself. And he knows something about Raskolnikov that makes the case even more dangerous. Raskolnikov has previously written an article arguing that extraordinary men may have the right to commit crimes for higher purposes. So now, the murder is connected not only to suspicion, but to ideology. Their conversations become verbal duels. Porfiry probes gently, then suddenly, he jokes, circles, hints, and watches. Raskolnikov tries to defend himself, but each conversation leaves him more shaken. The great conflict of the novel becomes clear. Can a human being truly live beyond morality? Or will truth force its way back to the surface, no matter how clever the mind may be? Porfiry seems to understand something very important. A guilty man may escape evidence for a while, but he cannot escape himself forever. As Raskolnikov grows more isolated, he is drawn again and again towards Sonya. She lives in shame, poverty, and suffering, yet unlike him, she has not turned bitter. She has not built theories to justify cruelty. She has endured pain without surrendering her humanity. This is why Sonya matters so much. She is not simply a love interest. She is the spiritual opposite of Raskolnikov. He has chosen pride. She has chosen sacrifice. He has tried to place himself above others. She lives for others. He speaks in theories. She lives in compassion. When they meet, Raskolnikov senses in her something he cannot find in himself: moral clarity born from suffering. At one point, Sonya reads to him the biblical story of Lazarus rising from the dead. The moment is symbolic, because spiritually, Raskolnikov is also dead, and somewhere beneath all his fever, arrogance, and guilt, there remains the faint possibility that he too might rise again. Another man enters the story: Arkady Svidrigailov. He is one of the most disturbing characters in the novel. Manipulative, morally corrupted, and deeply cynical, Svidrigailov seems to represent what Raskolnikov could become if he fully abandoned conscience. He is intelligent, indulgent, and strangely fearless. But beneath it all, he is spiritually empty. He becomes obsessed with Dunya, which creates another source of danger. If Sonya shows the possibility of redemption through suffering, Svidrigailov shows the opposite path: freedom without morality, desire without restraint, intelligence without soul. He is, in a sense, Raskolnikov's shadow, a warning of what lies at the end of unchecked pride. As the days pass, pressure closes around Raskolnikov from every side. Porfiry continues his quiet pursuit. His family senses that something is wrong. His own mind grows more unstable, and his need to confess begins to battle with his fear of humiliation and punishment. There are moments when he almost wants to be discovered, simply to end the torture. This is one of the deepest truths in the novel. The burden of hidden guilt can become so unbearable that exposure itself begins to look like relief. Porfiry eventually tells Raskolnikov, almost directly, that he knows the truth. But even then, he does not immediately arrest him. Instead, he urges him toward confession, not only because confession serves the law, but because confession is the first step toward healing a shattered soul. Meanwhile, Svidrigailov corners Dunya and attempts to force himself into her destiny, promising help, power, even salvation if she will accept him. But Dunya refuses. In one of the novel's most tense scenes, she even points a gun at him. She cannot bring herself to kill him, but her resistance is absolute. She would rather suffer than surrender herself to corruption. This moment matters because it mirrors Raskolnikov's crime from the opposite direction. He killed to prove power. Dunya refuses violence even under pressure, and in doing so proves moral strength. Soon after, Svidrigailov, confronted by emptiness and unable to escape his own inner void, takes his own life. His path ends not in redemption, but in annihilation. At last, Raskolnikov reaches the breaking point. He goes to Sonya, and there, before the one person who can truly understand suffering, he confesses. He tells her that he killed the pawnbroker and Lizaveta. He tries to explain himself. He speaks of theory, of poverty, of greatness, of wanting to know whether he dared. But in the presence of Sonya, these arguments begin to crumble, because truth is no longer abstract. It is human, it is bloody, it is real. Sonya does not reject him. She does not excuse him either. Instead, she tells him what he must do. Go to the crossroads, bow down, kiss the earth, and confess before all people. Accept suffering, accept truth. Only then can a new life begin. This is the turning point of the entire novel, because for the first time, Raskolnikov stops asking whether he is above morality and begins to face what he has become. Raskolnikov hesitates. Even now, pride does not die easily. But finally, he goes out into the city. He kneels, he kisses the ground, and eventually he confesses to the authorities. The long inner nightmare begins to take external form. He is sentenced to penal servitude in Siberia. The punishment that started in his conscience now becomes punishment in the world. But strangely, this is not the end of his suffering, nor is it yet the beginning of peace, because confession alone does not instantly purify the soul. He has admitted the crime, but he has not yet fully surrendered his pride. In Siberia, Raskolnikov enters a new stage of the story. He is now physically punished, but inwardly he remains divided. He still clings to pieces of his old arrogance. He still sees himself, in some ways, as misunderstood, rather than morally guilty. And yet Sonya follows him, faithfully, quietly, patiently. She comes to Siberia and remains near him, carrying compassion into the wasteland of his punishment. Slowly, something begins to change, not through argument, not through philosophy, but through suffering, love, and humility. Raskolnikov falls ill again, and during this period of weakness, the hard shell around his soul begins to crack. He starts to understand that his real crime was not only murder, it was separation. Separation from humanity, separation from love, separation from moral truth. And in the novel's final emotional movement, he begins at last to love Sonya, and through that love, to rejoin the human world. Dostoevsky does not give us a neat ending. Raskolnikov is not magically transformed overnight, but he is no longer spiritually dead. The possibility of resurrection, hinted at in the story of Lazarus, becomes real. His punishment has led him to the threshold of redemption. Crime and punishment is often remembered as a murder story, but its true subject is deeper. It asks what happens when intelligence loses humility. What happens when pride tries to replace morality? What happens when a person decides that human life can be measured, ranked, and sacrificed in the name of an idea? Raskolnikov wanted to prove that he was extraordinary. Instead, he discovered that no theory can silence conscience forever. No pride can protect the soul from guilt, and no human being can truly live cut off from love, truth, and compassion. In the end, crime and punishment is not just about crime. It is about the painful road back from moral isolation. It is about the terrible cost of arrogance, and it is about the fragile, difficult, miraculous possibility of spiritual rebirth.